Welcome to the topic. Good afternoon. We are here to highlight Houston Community College, our students, our programs, and our reach into the community. I'm Daniel Scholl, one of the financial coaches here at HCC. And today is the first episode of a very special topic series called Financial Focus. Every other month, we'll be bringing you ideas for working more skillfully with your finances to live your best life, take care of your family, and benefit your community. As you all may know, HCC serves a wide range of students of all ages, and each generation does have its unique challenges. We're going to talk about those today with Chris Hensley, a financial advisor and president and CEO of Houston First Financial Group. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Daniel, thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're excited. You get to be the first guest ever on the Financial Focus. So
I heard that on the intro. I was like, "Oh, I'm honored to be the first guest here." That makes me feel good. So.
Yeah, we'll talk to budgeting about getting you a plaque or something. No, there's
nice.
Yeah, there's no plaque coming. So you staying safe and dry today?
I'm trying. And we are, definitely having a weather event here. But here in Houston, prepare. You got to have your umbrella with you. You never know.
For sure. So before we jump into what's going on with different generations here financially, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do as a financial advisor?
Yeah, absolutely. So I wear two different hats. When I wear my financial planning hat, I'm the president of Houston First Financial Group. We focus on retirement planning, and I've been doing that for the last 20 years now. And then I also have my podcast, which is moneymatterspodcast.com, and we just hit our 10-year anniversary this year. So a decade into doing that. So excited about both of those milestones.
Oh, that's exciting. Congratulations. 10 years. That's a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people, for sure, for podcasting. Yes.
Absolutely. So speaking of retirement, HCC has a significant number of students who are boomers and Gen Xers, and they're coming to us a lot of times with a career change or personal enrichment. The most obvious financial issue for these groups is retirement, right? Gen Xers are approaching that transition. Boomers are getting used to living on a retirement income. What are some of the things that you see during this time?
Yeah, this is a very important time for both Gen Xers and boomers when it comes to retirement focus, right? I just turned 20 turned 50 on April 20th, right? So I definitely fit in the Gen X age group, right? And even thinking about retirement, I'm not retirement age, right? Guess what? You are. So you need to be thinking about it. For anybody who's post 50 now, they could take advantage of what's called a catch-up contribution. So if you have not, if you've done the math and you sat down and you don't have enough funds to retire, this is where you got to get more aggressive and start putting money aside. For boomers, people who were in that age bracket, 59 and up, really, or post 59, right? There is still some time as far as making smart choices when it comes to Social Security, right? A lot of times we think about retirement, we just think about our 403Bs or our 401Ks. The choices that you make when you turn on your Social Security can be some of the biggest decisions that you make over the next 20, 30 years out, right? And if you don't do it correctly, you can end up taking, those mistakes with you in the next 30 years. Healthcare choices for both of us, really.
It's huge. It's a number one expense. Yeah,
absolutely. For Gen Xers, if we're still employed, then we have our employer plan, right? So taking advantage of HSA, maxing out your contributions to that's going to help you on the tax side. But as you get closer to retirement, 65 is when Medicare kicks on, right? So if you retire earlier than that, you need to have a solution for healthcare. And I know when we look at inflation's always somewhere between 3 to 4%, unless it's not, right? Like the last couple of years we've had. Right. But when we look at healthcare expenses for prescription drugs, for just general healthcare expenses, the rate of inflation on that is closer to 12 to 13%. So this is something that, that age group, that generation has to plan for and be prepared for it, or else it's going to be an eye-opening experience.
Do you recommend like supplemental insurance for people in retirement?
So that is very specific to everybody's situation. Some people have retiree healthcare insurance with their employer, or if they're a state employee, for instance, they may have options for retiree healthcare. So you kind of really have to look at an individual scale. But for people who don't have that option, the donut hole, trying to fill in the gaps, what no longer looks like employer-sponsored healthcare, right? That would be what you would turn on supplemental insurance. So it may be a good choice for some people. Just depends on their situation for sure.
Well, I think you bring up a good point there, right? So you and I are going to, discuss general advice today or general situations. But just like you shouldn't diagnose yourself on WebMD, you should not, get a specific financial plan off any sort of media, right? Everybody needs an individual plan.
100%. Yeah, that's not, you can't cheat at it. You can't look at your neighbor's financial plan. Everything is very specific to that person as far as their risk tolerance and, how long it is before they retire. So that's something very individual. Yep.
Something else that I think the boomers and Gen Xers are facing is, aging parents. What are some of the financial challenges that people face as they become parents, basically to their parents?
Yeah, caregiving in general. So one of the things that we do on our website is that we have the courses and classes for caretaking for the loved ones, right, of parents, right? And there's the emotional side of it, just preparing to do that, right? The actual like emotional part of shifting into that role. And then there's the financial part of it, right? I mean, I have clients that are paying $7,000 to $8,000 a month here in Texas to take care of their, spouses or significant others. And it's not like if you love your parents, you wouldn't do this, right? But we're not healthcare professionals. We're not doctors. We're not nurses. People are physically unable to carry people to bathe, to eat, to move, yeah. Right? And so that's when you have to get skilled healthcare, skilled nurses, doctors, and all of that is really, really expensive. So this definitely needs to be on our radar for Gen X, a little bit younger there. We used to call the boomers the sandwich generation, right? Because their goals were right in between taking care of their own parents, getting the kids off to school, and their retirement. Well, that's going to be handed to us, right?
Yeah, Gen X is definitely in that sandwich situation. Real quick, before we move on here, can you tap into your retirement plans? Like if you do have like an IRA or a Roth IRA, can you tap into that for healthcare expenses for parents?
So that is not a qualified expense. It depends on where you get it from, right? So if it's an employer-sponsored plan, some of the employer-sponsored plans have what's called hardship withdrawals. So you can do like a loan provision, that sort of thing, but it's very specific by employer and how those plans are written. For your IRA, you can take distributions for emergency health, but I don't think it goes all the way up to parent.
I don't think it does either. I think it's just for you and your immediate family. So
right. But if we could, we would for sure.
For sure. So I would just say, anyone out there that's got questions, get with a financial advisor, talk to Social Security. They're always happy to talk to you. And time, nothing like the present. When we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, let's take a look at the millennials. Okay, Chris?
Sounds like a plan.
All right. We'll be right back.
At Houston Community College, we make your lessons matter. Open the door to real-world education, where passions become careers. Find out more at hccs.edu and let your success take flight.
For more than a year, we have kept you informed with more than 500 remote episodes. But now we're back, bigger and better, with more news and more guests. Join us live every weekday at 10 a.m. on Facebook and YouTube, and on HCC TV at noon and 5 p.m. You can watch from anywhere. We go where you go.
And welcome back to the topic. This is our financial focus edition. We're continuing our conversation today with Chris Hensley of the Houston First Financial Group. Chris, now we've talked about the baby boomers and the Gen Xers. The millennials, they're entering their peak earning years, but they've really faced some tough challenges since they've gotten out of school. One of the things that, we're hearing all the time is it's very difficult for them to buy a house. What can you tell me about what you're seeing on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have heard this as well, that, our generation versus millennials, that 27 to 42 age group, right? And that it's almost impossible to buy a house now. I'm going to say yes. Interest rates are not what they used to be when it comes to loans, but I'm going to encourage people to still make that investment into real estate. There's very few things that I can give a blanket statement recommendation, but when it comes to buying a home, you're either paying, rent to somebody else or somebody else's mortgage, right? A lot of very good things about rent or about mortgage, right, is that you can write off this simple interest on a mortgage most of the time if you get up and over the standard deduction. You're building equity almost like a bank account. So if you move into an area where there's capital appreciation, it's not 100% guaranteed that it's going to appreciate, but most of the time it's going to appreciate and go up, right? So that is a thing that I would encourage people, even if it's difficult to do it, still do it. But you need to save for that, right? And
Right.
so having, putting aside those 3 to 6 months of committed living expenses as cash reserve, and eventually earmarking that for down payment money for purchasing a home. Yeah.
But it's something that I think people don't like to talk about when you talk about a homeowner is it's incredibly important when it actually comes to retirement, because one of the, when I was doing financial coaching in the nonprofit world, one of the things I saw a lot was people who retired, they don't have a house, they don't have their house paid off, and now they're really can risk homelessness. One of the great things about having a home is, and I hate to be morbid, but you have a place to die.
Yeah. Yep. And aging in place. It used to be when people would reach that age, you would think about nursing homes. And, post-COVID, most people now are doing the age in place, where they're having people come to the home right up until hospice care or right up until they can't. There's different levels of that, retirement communities, that sort of thing. But for sure, it gives you roots, right? I know that's one of the things I like about it. It gives you a place to be, right?
Absolutely. And that, with my mom, I mean, that's what we did. We did home health care up until hospice. And then, we had a choice of home hospice. She wanted to go to the hospital, but, I think people, it's hard to put a value on having a place at that point in your life. And I know for the millennials, that's kind of hard to think about that far out, but it makes a difference. The other thing that I think is important about home ownership, and maybe you can talk a little bit about this, is it's really the main way that wealth has transferred historically in this country from one generation to the next.
Oh yeah. When I look at somebody's net worth or their balance sheet, the value of the asset of that home or raw land or whatever the piece of real estate is very large compared to the rest of the holdings a lot of the time. And it's one of these set it and forget it things where people, you turn on your 403B or your 401k at the beginning when you get hired. Well, when you start putting money into your mortgage, it doesn't seem like you're putting a lot towards principal, but these tiny slices of principal start going over there. And by the time you're retirement age, you have an asset, right? It is a big asset at that time.
Yeah. One of the things, right. And then you pass that asset on to your kids, right?
100%. Yep.
So the other thing I hear a lot of millennials say is that they're already drowning in debt, right? Be it student loan debt and just personal debt. They don't want to take on home debt either. Can you talk a little bit about debt management and good debt versus bad debt?
Yeah, for sure. So, this is one of those things. Student loans, home loans, these are necessary evils, right? I'm one of these people that I don't like debt at all. So cash, I try to, encourage people to carry a cash instead of credit cards, right? The average person has about $16,000 of unsecured credit card debt. And then when you start adding in, I get people who are doctors who are six-figure student loan debt, right? Starting in the work world that way. And so hopefully those things are going to start getting better when we look at tuition and that sort of thing. But on the other hand, it's one of these things that you have to start building good credit if you want great interest rates on a new car, or if you want great interest rates when it comes to mortgage. You have to have a good credit record established, right? Which is, there's no silver bullet to that. That's consistent payments over time, a history of those. Student loans is a good one to start with. Unfortunately, if you get them, paying them back, you're showing a consistent payment history over time, and so that is a positive thing towards your credit report, which would work favorably if you decide to buy a home in the future, or if you decide to get a new car. You can get some of the best rates available there.
And, a car is kind of the third category that, most people are going to need to borrow for. I tell a lot of my clients, hey, look, if you can just borrow money to buy a house, pay for school, and get a car, and that's it, you'll be ahead of the game, right?
Yeah.
Pay cash for the things that you want, maybe borrow, because generally those three, we're going to set the car aside for a second, but the home and the education are investments in yourself, right?
100%. 100%. Those are, typically people earn more when they've got an education behind them. That is, statistically, or it's proven, right? We've seen that. So those are, you could definitely make the argument that that's an investment in your future and your potential earning income, right?
Yeah. And, if you're an HCC student already, you're thinking about becoming an HCC student, this is a very affordable place to start that education and save some of that money, for sure. We've talked a little bit about retirement, with the millennials, having a house and all that. And I know for them, retirement's a long way away, but as we wrap up this segment, what should millennials be doing right now to secure a comfortable retirement?
Yeah, the best thing they can do is save. So this is going to look boring, right? So the sophisticated investment management strategies I use at the end of your life when you're trying to retire, they don't play in as much when you're younger. You have a lot of runway there, right? So the old buy and hold strategy, just getting money into the market and dollar cost averaging in, is fantastic because you have time on your side. You've got the magic of compound interest working in your benefit, right? So always encourage people to start saving as early as they can, getting that 3 to 6 months of cash reserve aside, educating yourself. I never let anybody off of the hook when it comes to, what do I do with my money, right? Read up on investments and learn about this stuff before just, putting money in the market. But just getting money set aside, that habit, that muscle of putting savings aside, out of sight, out of mind, that is the best way to get started with discipline and intention.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I tell people all the time, make it as easy as possible to get money into savings. And you're going to need to save kind of in 3 buckets, right? You're going to need that emergency savings that you're talking about, 3 to 6 months living expenses. You're going to want to save up for planned periodic expenses, vacations, things like that, plus your retirement. If you can have that money automatically put into those accounts, so it doesn't go into your checking, you don't get your hands on it, the easier it is to save, the better off it'll be down the road. When we come, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Gen Z and Alpha and what they need to be doing as they prepare to enter the workforce.
At Houston Community College, we make your lessons matter. Open the door to real-world education, where passions become careers. Find out more at hccs.edu and let your success take flight.
When I was your age, I was just like you, fascinated by stars. But now I get to search for life in the universe. And who knows, maybe life is looking for us too.
So we're like aliens to them?
Yeah. Does anyone want to be a scientist now?
I do.
Awesome. We need more girls in STEM.
Maybe we can find aliens.
Things could be stranger, but I don't know how. I'm going through changes, through all of the strangeness. I'm going through changes now.
And welcome back to the topic, our financial focus edition. We're continuing our conversation with Chris Hensley of Houston First Financial Group. Chris, a good portion of HCC students are, traditional high school students who just graduated, going directly into college here at HCC. We also have a thriving dual credit cohort. Let's talk about how they can start out right. Gen Z's entering the workforce, getting their first, real jobs. They're going to get overwhelmed by benefits. What should they be looking at when they get that paperwork?
Yeah, I can't encourage people enough to actually participate in the retirement plan, whether it's a 401k if you're in the private sector, if it's a 403b if you're for a nonprofit, a school, or a government institution, a hospital, right? If you don't participate in that retirement plan, most of the time you're leaving money on the table, right? So when you get hired at an employer, they're going to do a match. Or they might do a match. More than likely, they will do a match. And if you don't take advantage of that, you're going to leave that benefit on the table that you've negotiated, whether you knew it or not, right? When you were looking for a job, one of the things you should be looking at is, hey, do they have this match, right? The other thing is salary, right? It's never too early to look at where you rank in salary for whatever position you're doing, even if it's your first job, right? You're getting started in the work world, but very shortly after that, whatever specialty area that you end up going into, look at where everybody else in the nation ranks for that pay. And are you getting paid correctly, right? Are you getting paid what you're worth? Those are things that people tend to forget about, but you can really move the needle by being aggressive, right? When it comes to negotiating your salary on the front end, because that carries into your your life and your career, right? So those are some important things to think about for sure. Getting started on your credit, like we mentioned earlier. And then alpha, boy, let me think, because what is that, 12 to 27? So, I would just say be conscious of this kind of stuff. I start developing that muscle of saving, disciplined saving, I'm one of these people, you hear the number 10%, right? Put 10% of your salary, every paycheck aside into an account. Well, I'm actually somebody who leans towards 20%, which people say, you're crazy, Chris, right? But that's because I work with a lot of people who are close to retirement. And if they don't have it, there's no way to go back, right? So putting that extra money aside for that safety net, this is a good age to start developing that habit. Yep.
Yeah. And, a lot of people, it's hard at that age to think that far ahead, right? But yes, absolutely. Invest in, because you said earlier, you have time on your side at that age. Let time work for you. In retirement, at a certain point, time can work against you. But when you're that young, as Gen Z and Alpha are, yes, absolutely, time is on their side. Now, one thing when they're coming out, we talked earlier in the last segment about debt management, and you and I kind of agreed, try not to put things on a credit card if you can avoid it. But I do remember when I got my first job, I had to buy 3 suits. I had one that I had interviewed in. I had to go buy some more suits. I got a job in a bank, and we, I was hoping that credit card would not get declined. Sometimes you do have to borrow money as you're setting up your household, as you're setting up your career. How can they manage that debt once that period is kind of over?
Yeah, I mean, be aggressive about paying the credit card debt off, right? So, single digit credit card, not great, but hey, it's a credit card, right? Double digit credit card interest rate, not good at all, right? And I'm smiling because when I went to HCC, that's when they got me. So I was leaving the bookstore and they had set up with the get a free squishy ball or whatever it is.
Yeah, no, fortunately they don't. Cards. I was going to say, fortunately they don't do that anymore. But yes, you and I are the same. I remember those credit card vendors.
So you need to establish your credit. You need to get it going. But once you've done that, paying it off consistently and really working towards those higher interest rate credit cards first, the ones that are just kind of crazy credit cards, right? That are the interest rates are real high. And knowing, I gave you that number earlier of the average person has about $16,000 to $17,000 of unsecured credit. If you go above that, there's a problem, right? If you're underneath that, then you're average, but nobody wants to be average when it comes to walking around with unsecured debt, right? So I would encourage people to pay it down. It will only work towards getting a lower debt to income ratio. If you get a mortgage in the future, student loans, all of that stuff, it all plays together.
Yeah, it does all play together. I think that's something that people miss because they kind of look at financial pieces individually, but it's really just all one puzzle working together. I will say I'll plug the financial coaches here at HCC. If anyone out there, HCC student, staff, or faculty is struggling with debt management and would like to put together a payoff plan, that's something that the financial coaches here can help you with. What tools for someone who doesn't have access to a financial coach? And we'll kind of wrap up here. Is there one tool that you recommend that people use, YNAB or spreadsheets, anything like that?
Yeah, so that is almost a preference thing. And I used to recommend mint.com, but that's no longer around. I think they discontinued that platform. So it doesn't, this is the thing I like to emphasize here. It doesn't have to be fancy, right? It could literally be sitting down with a yellow legal pad and, assets, liabilities, income, expenses, and taking a snapshot of where you're at. Or you could use something like an app. NerdWallet's one I've heard a lot about, an app that can help you do all of that. But it depends on that person's level of or financial organization, right?
Yeah. Especially when it comes to fintech or anything like that, what I tell people is the best one is the one that you're actually going to use.
100%.
Well, Chris, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us here today. You're a great, wealth of knowledge, and I think a real asset to our students, staff, and faculty here. And I'd like to thank everyone else for joining us here on our first Financial Focus episode. I'm so excited that we're going to be doing this every other month. To listen to a podcast version of this show, visit hccs.edu/podcasts. For the topic on HCC TV, I'm Daniel Scholl. Stay dry, Houston, and we'll see you in a couple months.